What is up? Welcome back to the SuperCoach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Savage, the coach of the Savage Turbos. I am joined by a loved favourite of the show, the coach of Tripjacker Mafia, Mikey. How are you going, Mikey? I haven't seen you since the Drink Quest episode.
Yeah, thanks for the nice intro, mate. It's good to be back here. It's good to be back on a podcast with you and back at DM Studio. So, been listening to the episodes and listening a little bit here and there, but I feel like this season I'm just a bit more hyped than I normally am. Like it sucks I got a holiday in the first month, but I feel like I've been putting a lot more time into the side. I'm way more buzzing for the season. I'm always buzzing, but I'm super keen, man. I feel like I'm here for the perfect episode because, geez, I'm doing my centre wing different this year, and man, there is so many options.
I feel like Grant's been on the show, Timmy's been on the show, and they're both more amped than they are this time of year in the past. So it's really good that I'm able to have all of you guys having on different opinions. You said just before the show that you've listened into the last few episodes, and one thing that's annoying you is no one disagrees with certain things I say. So I hope you come along with a lot of disagreements today because that's a big hurdle to follow.
Look, me and you do think very similar when it comes to sides, but I know there's always a player or two where we definitely disagree on. So it'll be interesting because I know both of us are spending a bit of money on our centre wing.
Yep.
I'm sure the classic favourites we do, but I've got a couple of pods up my sleeve that I think will come into disagreements with. So let's hope there's a bit of back and forth going.
I like it. So you obviously haven't been here for the hooker front row, second row halves. Anyone in your black book per se?
I agreed with a lot of the things you was saying, and then there were some people I was listening to and I was like, Sabs, man, I think, oh, come on, bro. Like, I pap at first, I was like, bro, this guy's not thinking into it as much, and you were talking about the way Panthers were going to get position. I was like, no, that's not how it's going to work. It's not how it's going to work, and like, I'm not worried at all about him being front row. He'll be on the edge. It'll be sweet, but I'm having lots of changes to my side. I feel like week in, week out, but yeah, I feel like to some degree, like with all the classic ones I agree on, I think I'm really hyped on at the moment is Preston in the second row. I know you briefly touched on him, and both you and Timmy were kind of like, yeah, you like him, but you didn't. I'm so hot on him.
You love him?
Yeah, like obviously a lot of them have their risks, but as I said, I feel like I'm in for the perfect episode. So I think the main thing I should probably say is at the moment, the way I'm thinking of using the flex, which I guess is the big talking point. At this point, I've been back and forth. At this point, I am a Yongi with the two fullbacks. I've got a gun in each position. It's a way more balanced side. If Tom Duffy, if I think he's going to get named and Hines gets dual, then I think with that excess money, I may.
I like that.
I may look to go.
I don't think he will, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, if he did and Hines didn't get the dual, I probably would use that money to bank in on like a Carraz and all these other kind of guys. But like, look, I think the free fullback like Grant, I agree with him. I think it might burn me a little bit at the start, but as long as Yongi makes some money, I think I can make up with it with not having a position as flawed. Because I started to look at two cheap hookers and I was like, learn from your mistakes last year. I got lucky with Starling for a bit. For 80% of the year, I was getting burned in that position. Yeah. So one thing I'm learning this year is do things a little bit differently. I finished 400th last year, but I started so crap that it could have been a much better year if I started stronger.
400th, considering you know where you went wrong at certain points of the year.
I thought I had a pretty average year.
That's amazing. Obviously, today's the Centre Wing episode. It's going to be a massive episode. We've got to go through team list, preseason challenge team list.
I totally forgot about that. So I haven't had the chance. I've been driving from work.
Well, I actually did as well, but you just reminded me then with Hines being potentially 6, so we will look at that very shortly. But first, this episode is brought to you by PickleBet. Head over to picklebet.com.au. Use the code TURBO when signing up. It helps the lads out. I've got a massive bet on offer today. PickleBet Cronulla Sharks to make the top 4 is paying $2 too. I think that's pretty much a lock. I think they're probably locked into third at worst. But at least we got wiggle room for them to be fourth. That's $2 too. Head over to picklebet.com.au. Use the code TURBO when signing up. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Before we head over to team list, I have a few more admin things. If you want to join our overall group code, that's 544005. All the lads are in there, and we'll pretty much be mentioning it every week. See who's doing well, see who's overall trumping us all and what the benchmark is. So that's always good fun to have. We've got a SuperCoach Champion ring up for offer at the moment, and we have a couple of sponsors potentially coming on that can spot us a bit of a group prize there. We are 2,825 YouTube subscribers. We put out a call the other week to try and get to 3,000 before the season starts. We are well on track to do that. So if you are watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe. Let's head over to the team lists because this is massive. So Raiders play the Sharks, the first game of the team list, and it is more full strength than last week. We've got, for the Canberra Raiders, Weeks at fullback, Savage and Tamale on the wing, cheapy centre wing. So we'll talk about him today. We've got Timoko and Chris in the centres, Ethan Strange and Fogarty in the halves, Papali'i and Trey Mooney at the starting front row position. Tom Starling starts at hooker, which is a good sign. I like him as a cheapy option. We got Matty Nicholson and Hudson Young in on the edges. He's in my side at the moment, Matty Nicholson. Morgan Smithies at lock. We've got Levi, Hopewade, Cook, and Jed Stewart on the bench with no Corey Horsburgh to be seen. So, bit of a worry, considering it's a full-strength side, but dare I say it's not going to hurt us because we'll get to know pretty early on in round 0 if he's playing or not.
It's a weird one, but because it's like Ricky's been saying this week that he's been very fit and all this kind of stuff, and they're treating this like they'll be stronger, these team lists, for the sides that played last week, because obviously their game's very soon. So at the same time, they're going to stack a stronger side. So it makes sense. Like even with the Tamale one, it makes sense that, they trialled the other guys on the wing and now they're giving the other, kind of competition a go. So it's going to be an interesting one.
For the Sharks, Will Kennedy at fullback, Stone Street and Mulatalo on the wings. We got Ramian and Iro in the centres. Brandon Trindle named at 6. Which is a dagger to your plans there. We got Nico Hines at number 7, Adam Fanua-Blake and Oregon Kafusi starting front rows, Blake Brayley at hooker, Nicola Wilton on the edges, Cameron McInnes number 13, Atkinson, Talakai, Hamlin, Uele and Hazleton on the bench. So pretty stock standard side there. Nothing screams out except that Hines. Sione Katoa not inside, but he did play last week. So
yeah, no, not a big surprise. And look, saying that I hope Hines gets a duel was like, fingers crossed, but I guess if he gets that duel, he just goes boop up in value.
The Knights played Parramatta. For the Knights, Will Price at fullback, Schiller and Marju on the wings, Riley Jones and Kyle McCarthy in the centres, Fletcher Sharp and Jack Cogger in the halves, Brodie Jones and Jack Hetherington up front, Jaden Brayley at hooker, Thomas Kant, Kai Pearce-Paul on the edges, Tyson Frizzell at lock, which is very interesting there, Tyson Gamble, Matt Croker, Jackson Hastings, Sebastian Sewer on the bench. We've got, for the Parramatta Eels, Isaiah Yongi at fullback, Jake Tungo and Arthur Miller-Stephen on the wings, Richard Penasini and Jordan Samrani at centre, Dylan Brown and Ronald Volkman in the halves, Joe Offengawe and Wiramu Greg up front, Brendan Hands at hooker. We got Katonga and Kelma Tuolangi on the edges. We've got Charlie Geimer at lock, Joash Papali'i on the bench, Sam Tuivati, Tony Matale and Bryce Cartwright on the bench. Anything stand out to you there?
Fuck, they're making it hard for you to pronounce those names on the bench. But in who was the first? The Knights. The interesting part will be if Fletcher Sharp plays in 5'8", does Marju go back to that left side? Or
Marju never played right, but James Schiller last year when he played for Canberra was on the right, so I think he goes straight in there.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting to see who gets that edge, like where the edge that Sharp played on last year and the edge that Marju's played on the years before. If that stays that way, then there's a lot of value there, which we'll talk about today. And Parramatta one makes sense. Charlie Geimer's an interesting one. It's good to see him used at lock and not in the edge. So
yeah, I saw rumours he's going to be on the edge.
His base price at the moment, so I think I'll like him. And yeah, the rest. Interesting.
Cowboys play Dolphins with a pretty understrength lineup for both sides. We've got Robert Derby on the wing. We've also got McHaley starting up front, Lawton at hooker. Cohen Hess starts at front row. And we've got Kai O'Donnell, who's starting on the edge. He's a big watch there at a cheap price.
No Duffy in the halves?
No Duffy in the halves. So
interesting.
That's a good thing. I think we got word that he was going to rest out this week and then next week was going to be the big one. For the Dolphins, Jake Avarillo at 6 and Sean O'Sullivan at 7. So that probably means Cody Nikorima potentially starts at 6 with Isaiah Katoa. Not much else doing there. Moving on to the Warriors. Now they've pretty much gone full strength again. Tane Tuapiki at fullback. Chance is out. Obviously, he had a pretty good game last week. Ali Leotawa at centre wing. I don't mind that. I actually don't mind him. He's a bit expensive for what he is, but we will talk about him today. Metcalf retains his 7 position. We've got Dimitri Vayamaga still on the edge at a cheap price, so he's definitely
starting
going to
this time?
He's starting.
Yeah,
Aaron
nice.
Clark starts at 13. We've got Dylan Walker on the bench still.
Interesting.
For the Melbourne Storm, they are a understrength side as well. We've got Stefano starting at prop, which is a massive watch. And then that's it for their side. They've got Fart Longo starting at fullback, which is pretty interesting. For the Manly Sea Eagles, Lehigh Hopewade starting at fullback, and the rest of their side is pretty under strength. Takiaho starts up front. Caleb Nabale at lock. For the Rabbitohs, Pete Mamazelis at hooker. We've got Jai Gray at fullback. Isaiah Tass in the centres. Jamie Humphries starting at 6 with Lewis Dodd. So that's going to be a massive watch. Dare I say that's potentially a fight for the 7 position?
Yeah, could be. It's sooner or later, I think Humphries is going to come into that side.
You reckon?
Yeah, 100% at some point.
Broncos play the Titans, and once again, pretty under strength. Kieran Foran, AJ Brimson are in the halves, which is good. Jaden Campbell is nowhere to be seen. We've got Bo Firma and Dave Fafita both playing. Chris Randall at lock, Mo Fodawaker starting up front, no Tino. For the Broncos, Pierre Cora and Jack Gazewski start on the edges. We've got Tyson Smoothie at 9. Interesting there. Billy Walters starts at 6, and we haven't got much else there. So for the Dogs, this is getting tiring. This is getting tiring. For the Dogs, Blake Taff, Blake Wilson, Drew Hutchison at 6, Joseph O'Neill at 7. We've got Bailey Hayward at 9, Sam Hughes at 10, Jamin Salmon at 13. Not much else there. For the Tigers, we've got Clemmer starting, Alex Lobb on the wing for Tabe. Gerald Skelton starting on the wing. Very interesting considering they're doing an understrength side there. For the Dragons, Clint Gutherson is in. Sione Fainu and Matthew Feeney on the wings. Val Holmes, Moses Sully in the centres. Ilias and Flanagan are in the halves. We've got Flanagan at 6, Ilias at 7. Couchman is starting prop. I really like Couchman.
But so is Gula, so maybe they're both competing for a spot there. So it's an interesting watch there.
Potentially, but Jack DeBellin is number 13, and in all predicted sides, he's been number 8. So maybe that's how they roll. Where's Tom Eisenhuth? He's off the bench. So that's a massive watch.
They've named a pretty strong side here. So, like, to be honest, like, that'd be huge because I think Couchman's starting like, realistically, if he starts from the bench, are probably similar minutes. The hard thing with the Dragons is going to be the way they rotate their minutes. So, like, even if he's starting, I think, like, a lot of the Dragons, I still want to watch how it's rotated. But Gula is very cheap. So, if he somehow started, I think you could take that risk because he's cheap.
What is he at?
Like, low 300s.
Oh, I like that. He's a good player too.
Yeah.
For the Roosters, they're pretty like they're a bit mixed. They've got Sandon Smith and Townsend in the half. They've got Mark Nwangawai Tawase and Robert Toya in the centres. So I dare I say this is probably going to be seeing how Mark goes.
Toya as well and
Toya as well.
Yeah, I think all of them, like, this is going to be a bit of, competition for the spot. Same with the guys they got in reserves.
Yep, we've got Sul Wong at lock, and interestingly, Victor Radley is still on the edge. In a lot of predicted sides, Victor Radley has been 13, so if Sul Wong gets that 13 position at 318k, that is a very nice price to have him at that.
The best part about Radley on the edge would be it opens up that starting spot for Nafua White. So although Wong's at lock, you got Nafua White starting prop realistically at the price we want Nafua White to start at some point, and Radley on the edge would help that come to
it. Does. Where does Nat Butcher or Victor Radley move for Angus Crichton? I think I'm very interested to see which side they both play on. So if Nat Butcher plays on the right, then dare I say Victor Radley probably goes into the middle come round 1. But if Victor Radley plays on the right, dare I say Angus Crichton takes that left edge spot and Nat Butcher goes to the bench.
And also we don't know which one out of Spencer and Nafua White will start on the bench because obviously you've got Lindsay Collins to come back into that side. So yet again, we're not 100% sure, but obviously these trial games might have something to do with it. Like, it's a big what if.
All right, that's it for the team list. what a drag that was. But I think it's good to see there's a lot more things to look out for this weekend than there was last weekend. Pretty excited for another weekend of footy. But if you do want your actual footy fix for the weekend, the SportshedTV charity match is on Sunday, 3 p.m. at Ringrose Oval. The link is in the description for tickets. Tickets are $15. It's all to charity. And the live stream link is out today. So it's $10 for the live stream link. If you want to tune in from home, it's going to be a really good watch. Playing on the side of Blake Austin. We're versing Mitch Pearson, Todd Carney, and we're potentially getting in exclusively. Ben Barber is very close to playing. So
that'd be a big one, especially you got two halves over there. Like someone of his quartet would be massive for you boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck, mate.
So I am starting lock, but I'm not starting lock because there will be some late mail.
Oh, okay.
You're
not in the centres this year?
I know I'm back in the centres. I'm back in the centres by the look of it. I'm not too sure. I think final team lists come in the group chat tomorrow. So,
yeah, nice.
But we've all agreed on I'll go into the centres. And we've got so many big dudes that I don't need to play the middle.
Yeah.
But yeah, very excited. Head to the link in the description. It's going to be a good day out. It was a really good day out last year. And Timmy's going to come along and do some stuff on the sideline, which is very exciting. All right. Let's talk some centre wings finally.
Let's get into it.
All right. So the number one centre wing from last year, Val Holmes, scored 14 tries last year and had 8 try assists, 95 out of 112 goals. Moves over to the St. George Illawarra Dragons, which comparing to Zach Lomax, scored 14 tries and had 4 try assists on the wing. Zach Lomax had 63 out of 79 goals. So from what I see from that, he's going to a side who scores less points, less opportunities for goals, and also, just less around him. I think both sides regress and both centre wings regress, but in my opinion, it's just way too much to start with at the start of the season. What are your thoughts on Valentine Holmes?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with agreeing with you on this one. It's an obvious one. It's a different club. Like, look, is there a world where he can do really well, 100%, and you won't get him at the ownerships that you get him at most years? But the issue is going to a new club. We need to see how that forms. Like, I think the Dragons can score a few points. I like the look of their side. Their draw's a bit mixed. It also just depends. Like, Holmes had good halves feeding him. No, you're right. Holmes had good halves like feeding him like in the Cowboys. Now goes over the Dragons where their halves aren't as good. You got Ilias and Flanagan. Like that's going to be a big if, but maybe because of that reason, he might get involved a little bit more. So if he gets involved a little bit more and they look to him a little bit more, Guffo's sweeping around the edge. I think if Guffo tries to link with him, he can still be an attacking weapon. But for me, I'd rather wait and see because you can save about 86k and go someone like Carraz, or you could save 100k and go someone like Garrick. That's just what it's going to be for these top shelf guys. Is I can spend less and get a guy that I believe I'm going to get more from the start.
I think so too, and like comparing him to guys who I think we got more of an idea how they can go compared to these guys who we don't know how they're going to go throughout this season. I'm actually very skeptical on how St. George are going to go. I actually think they're going to go a lot better than the Cowboys though. So anyone in an attacking side in the Cowboys, I think we're going to get a lot of cheap options there, but I kind of like him at St. George, but I don't know if he plays right or left. I think that's important as well.
The big thing too is they've got to buy in round 3. So that's a pretty early buy to spend 780k on a player that's got to buy within the first 5 rounds. It's tough, especially like say you're also buying another top shelf centre wing and they've got to buy in the first 5 rounds. Like eventually, then what are you really missing out on? I think it's important to know when you're spending money on players on your side, have a look at how many. I think it's fine to take one within the 5 rounds if they have a buy, but you can only have so many. And in a position like that also would kind of turn me off. The fact that he goes Dogs, Bunnies, Bye, Melbourne, Para. To me, those first 4 weeks are pretty hard. I really like. I don't know how high scoring some of those games can be. Like we expect Dogs to be good again, we expect Bunnies to bounce back, and we expect Melbourne to be as good as they normally are. So that's a really tough start for him, and that's why I would not feel confident spending that amount of money on him.
I agree. I don't want to agree with you, but I agree. I think for these...
Fair enough for these ones.
I think for
the pods is where we might disagree.
Yeah. Much of these higher guys, I think we're going to agree a lot on this. And
easily.
Like 780k, that's more than Reece Walsh. So, in my opinion, you're probably better off, like, if you're planning on going to Iongi or something, you're better off going to Reece Walsh and skipping Holmes and going down to like a
100%.
like a
Even
Derby or
that's the
something.
same price as Ponga. Like you can get some top shelf fullbacks here for the same price.
Yeah.
100%.
100%. Zach Lomax starts at 773,000, not much less than Bauer Holmes. As I said, 14 tries, 4 tries, 63 out of 79 goals. But the stinger here is he's going to play centre this year. He averaged 90.75 at centre last year, but that was including a massive 170 games. So for people thinking that he's going to regress playing centre, he's going to be in a better side. Dare I say, like leaving Ben Hunt's side, it's a negative, but he's probably gone to the second best person to play alongside, or one of the best people to play alongside, and that's Mitchell Moses on that dominant right side. We've seen in the past Isaiah Papali'i absolutely kill it. Bryce Cartwright absolutely kill it. He's going to have someone like Kelmer there who's just more of a solid guy. He's going to go to Zach Lomax a lot more, and I do see a world where he probably can score more than what he's priced at, but I think just at the price, I just want to see more. I want to 100% make sure he's goal kicking, because that's still definitely up in the air. I know it's been confirmed online that he probably is going to be the goal kicker, but I just need to see it in person first, and I need a couple of weeks just to see what the kind of style of play is.
Yeah, he's coming off a career year. He was awesome, and I didn't own him at all last season, and you know, he's that kind of guy that if you didn't own him, man, he just flew under the radar, and if you wanted to have him, and I believe he can do similar at the Eels, but let's face it, his best position is wing. If he was starting wing on that side of Moses, confirmed to kick goals, you look at him a lot harder, because you look at his ownership and you go, okay, this is not as bad. Like, you know, like realistically, when he's at like top form, he could easily be owned by above 30%. Comes in pretty expensive, but yeah, that's kind of what puts me off. I don't hate the Eels draw either. Yeah, Storm's a tough one to start with. We saw, like, you know, Penrith couldn't score a point against them round 1 last year. But you got Tigers, Dogs, Manly, Dragons, Raiders. Like, it's not bad there. I can see points there, and I really like Lomax with Moses. That is the factor. At some point, you're going to want to get him, but I just can't do it in centre at that price. Like, he's priced on that average mostly from the wing last year, where he has a good base, but he had those tries to go with it, which was sending him to the 120 pluses so many times. Like, he was scoring some decent sized tons.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to say I agree again.
Look, we've already said we're going to agree with these top shelf ones.
With a lot of these guys, I think, like, as we get further down, obviously we're going to disagree a lot more because we're going to like and dislike. But I think a lot of people are in the same boat. I think there's certain people who do have the likes of Val Holmes and Zach Lomax in their side. I think they're trying to be cute and just trying to be like, these guys were the best last year and no one wants them because they're overpriced, which is probably true. And dare I say, they're probably still going to score well. But I think you're just not getting value for your money, and you've probably got to take that risk with them higher price players in fullback and halfback, because you can afford to hold a Nathan Cleary because you know he's going to get his value back eventually. Number 3, Herbie Farnworth, 728,300. His pure base last year was 37. That's before even any power stats, so offloads, tackle breaks, and all that. A low score of 40, which for a centre wing, unheard of. 4 tons last year, and 50% of his games were over 60, which, like, very under the radar for Herbie Farnworth, and ended up as the 3rd highest scoring centre wing. He's going to play on that right edge next to Jermaine Asako. I tried to dig up what his stats were, the left side versus the right side. It was very hard to find, but I'm sure they were just as good on either side. What are your thoughts on Herbie?
Look, to be honest, we just spoke about those other 2 guys. If you were going to spend the money, he costs like $50K less. I kind of prefer Herbie to those other 2, which is huge. But the reason why I do prefer him is I love the Dolphins draw to start. Mind you, he's only owned by 3% right now. It's crazy to mention just with Holmes is only owned by 4% and Lomax is only owned by 11%. So that kind of makes him like, if you spent the money and they just went bang the first few weeks, this is what makes these moves a big one. But it's just so risky if you want a balanced side, because as we're going to dive into it, there's a lot of value in the centre wing this year, especially around the 500K, where, you know, taking a 500K instead of someone like Herbie, that's an extra 220K. That can take you from a shaky mid-ranger at second row or a shaky mid-ranger at hooker to someone a lot more stable. So these are the things here. But just to go off the draw of the Dolphins, like they start with the Bunnies, Then they go Knights, Tigers, Broncos, Titans, and 3 of those games are out of the first 5 are at home, and then one of those is just at the Gold Coast. So realistically, it's a favourable draw for the travel for the Dolphins, but. Like you said, Savs, his stats are incredible last year, and his base is really well. So he showed last year, like he scored that 176 against the Broncos, and he showed that he's got a bit of a ceiling. So
he's probably one of the more underrated SuperCoach players. Like, we look at 2023 when the Broncos made the grand final. What was the missing link when they missed the 8 last year? Like, they were losing. They lost Flegler. They lost Herbie, who I think really affected them. And the Dolphins have just hung in there, and I think it's because Herbie was just such a massive piece last year. With a new coach in Christian Wolf, obviously Wayne Bennett is pretty conservative. Maybe that gives him a bit more of a license to run through the middle, offload a bit more. I like Herbie, and I think if you're going to take a punt on someone, Herbie's not a bad shout. There are a couple of guys around this price that I'm a bit more keen on, but I think Herbie's not far off.
Yeah, especially when you compare him to Carraz. Like, Carraz has got just such a good draw too, but his games over 60% last year were over 50%. Even the year before that, at the Broncos was 48%, 50% the year before. So we've now got a 3-year sample size where he's gone close to 50% over 3 years. So that's pretty good from your centre wing. Like, yeah, the difference this year is you're going to be paying for it.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, if you wanted to pay for it, why I don't mind it, is the draw. It's the right time to kind of go. Like, as I said, it's just depends if it works for your side. Because, as I said, there are a plethora of options which are going to cover. But look, I couldn't hate anyone that truly feels that Herbie's going to start hot, because he could.
I think he will too. But I can't go past this guy, number 4, Jacob Carraz, 702,800. 54% of his games were over 60 points. He averaged 84 on the wing in 13 games. They've got a side now, Crichton, Zeri. Crichton and Cherry are locked into that centre spot. They've got the other wing. It's going to be... They're missing on their wing depth at the moment, so he's definitely locked into a wing position. In centre, he averaged 57.3 with 2 tons. So 84 compared to 57.3 is massive. He's priced at about a 70. So there's already 13 points value, him playing wing. Another year with the Bulldogs with the same side. 7 tons in total throughout the whole season. So he's an elite centre wing.
Oh, man, like it's been the headache of my side. I love Carraz. He's probably one of my favourite players away from Penrith, which is pretty huge. I always love a winger, and he's just a beast of a guy to own. Now, surprisingly, right now as it currently stands, I don't have him in my side. He's been constantly in and out of my side. It's more so just having a look and going, okay, I've changed my mind. I want to have a gun 5'8", or I've changed my mind. I want this. And because I deem Garrick, I don't think I can start without Garrick, which we'll explain when we get to Garrick. But because I want to start with him over Carraz, I have a backup plan to make sure if Carraz fires, that I'll get a piece of the puzzle, which we're going to go over when we get later when I reveal my pod. But if something happens where we get more. It's not, because it's someone connected to Carraz. Yeah. But the big thing for Carraz is if he's with Crichton, his average gets up even more. I like him better with Crichton. And on top of that, like the main thing, like he's a beast in that position, but it's just like I need more cheapies. If I get more cheapies, the first thing I will do is upgrade that player to Carraz. Like I know at one point I know you were looking at Carraz and Garrick. I think that's a beast move if you can start with both of them. But right now, I just can't currently do it.
Yeah, and I guess like I do have Carraz and Garrick in my side. We'll talk about Garrick. I'm very high on him. I haven't. There's been no way that I miss out on either of these two, but I'm sacrificing players like Olakuatu's come out of my side now. I've got players like Matt Burden who have been in and out of my side.
He went into my side. That's why I dropped him.
Yeah. So a lot of these players are missing out, but Garrick and Carraz are non-negotiables for me. I just think as a centre wing last year, we saw early on, if you had Lomax or Holmes or both, like you're killing it. And I guess what we did see from last year, you only needed one to do well. You didn't need to have them both, because I started with Holmes and then it was about loading up eventually.
I guess if you're not going him, what you want to do is if I say I'm like going for a 500k instead, I want to make sure the one I own can go not toe-to-toe with him, but get closer. Like, say Carraz is averaging 70. If I can get a 60-ish average or even a 5 below that at 200k less, imagine that's going to be a lot better because if Carraz is pumping that, he's not going to increase super amount unless he's going ton.
Yeah.
But while your other 500k player can add value while you've done that, your team's going to be a bit more spread out. But in saying that, I look at it and Dragons, Titans, Eels, Sharks, Knights. That Titans game, like he can go big early, and that's the scary part. Carraz is the kind of guy, if he scores a try, his base power is so good that you're looking at a 90. He's scoring 80 minimum with a try, which is so scary not to have. But look, I'm not saying I'm not going to start with. I love Carraz, and I can't talk anyone off Carraz, and he's only owned by about 13% the last time I looked, which is huge.
Carraz,
yeah.
No way.
Unless I'm wrong. I'll counter that while you look.
I'll have a look.
No, there you go. 12% currently as it stands.
That's crazy.
12%, which is also the more I'm talking about, like, you idiot, Michael, get him back.
He's a pod, bro. He's a pod.
At 12% at his price and the capabilities. Like, it's even like last year. Like, it took a while for people to jump on the Carraz chain. It's just like, look, he does have this back injury niggling, and he had that the whole last season. At the start of last season, he did suffer. He come in and out. Look, I don't ever want to, like, if I'm not starting him, kind of hoping that injury, like I'm hoping that injury kind of makes him start a little bit slow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like he's a beast. You're going to need him in your top 4 centre wings at some point. So I can understand with you. Start with him if you believe that.
He's
a gun.
Absolute must-have for me. Dom Young, 701,200. I'll group him with Daniel Tupou, 674,000. I don't love the Roosters. I don't love. I just don't know how they're going to look. So I've put a line through them pretty early on.
I agree with you the same. Just to go off that, they're going to play Brisbane, Penrith. That's their first 2 games.
Yeah.
And then Warriors, Titans, Bunnies. But then when you look ahead, they've got Broncos and Penrith again.
Yep.
So in their first 7 weeks, they play the Broncos and Panthers twice. That's obviously assuming that you think the Broncos are going to
come back,
which I know me and you both believe that they are.
Yeah.
So that's why we're giving it on that opinion. So say they do smash it. That's a bit of a tough draw for them. And like you, that is a lot to spend on Young. And Young will be relevant at some point in the season. But let's see how their halves work. And I'd prefer Young as, say, he loses 100 to 150k, you'd be getting ready to snag him up because you know that he's got a hat-trick and 4-try game in him. So he's that kind of guy that you just have him there on that watch list and get ready to snap him up when he drops. But we need to look at the Roosters.
I also think with Sam Walker out of the side, the right winger was very dominant when Sam Walker was in the side. I think without him in the side, it becomes less attractive on that side. Teddy is very good on the right side as well. He's very good on the left as well. But I just think that the right side will be way less dominant, and I think they'll try and play through the middle a bit more since they've got the experience in the middle. They'll try and play through the middle a bit more.
Townsend's a bit of a vet. Townsend is a veteran.
He is, but before last year, didn't he have 2 try assists?
He did. I just remember watching Drinkwall all the time, and he started to look like Drinkwall a little bit, and I see him throw a cut by someone's going, I go, yeah. And then
it was Townsend.
Damn. So it's good.
I remember that.
It's good to have not that confusion there this year. And I actually, we're not talking about fullbacks, but I kind of like Drinky more because Townsend's not there. But I agree with you. I think there's just a lot to wait. I have a couple of Roosters in my side, but they're all the cheaper ones. I think there is some value depending on where they start, but you can't spend up for either of those guys. No way.
Agree. Number 6, Dane Gagai, 694,600, base of 38, 57% of the time he was over 60. He averaged 70.7 in his first 3 last year. He's priced at 71, so he's the kind of guy that if you want to spend 694k to get 70, then that's probably what you'll get. He's got a pretty good draw to early on, but ceiling's not huge. For me, he's not attractive, but I don't think he's going to hurt you if you do take the punt. But I just think there's plenty of other options elsewhere. Yeah,
yet again, it's going to be the same thing. There are so many good options at these lower price guys. That's when we're going to start diving into where I think you can go Potter. It's Gagai's going to be a pod, but yet again, I just can't spend that money with the other options that we've got on offer.
Number 7, Brighton To'o, 688,000. I don't like him. I will want to hear your whether you like him or not. I obviously like him as a player, but he has Sharks, Roosters, and Melbourne in the first 3. He averages 59 versus the Sharks, 57 versus the Roosters, and 53 versus Melbourne. I think just for me, just because of that first 3, I need a centre wing that's going to start hot, and I can't see him going absolutely bonkers. Plus, what side does he play? We don't know yet.
That is the big question. if he plays on the right-hand side with Cleary, then, I do like that. Especially if, but then again, does he play next to Taker?
There's actually a good chance that happens potentially, or do they, because Alamoti's on the left, do they put To'o next to Alamoti?
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one. I'd prefer him with Alamoti, to be honest with you, and I think that To'o is going to be a better option.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah. Sorry for the breakup, but yeah, with To'o, the big thing with him, I don't mind the price. He did burn me a bit towards the end of last year, but there's a lot of questions there. Like you said, that draw is iffy to start. I don't have confidence that Panthers are going to start super fast. They got some key changes that they're going to have to mould into. But if they did start fast, I could see To'o reaping the rewards. I think if you did think Panthers are going to start fast and they do start with someone like Casey McLean, I'd prefer to just take a risk with him at 440K. We saw a bit of To'o's base slip away from last year. And his people, compared to what we've seen from him from last year. So that's, last year he only scored over 60 points 43% of the time compared to the year before where that was 60%. But you go back to 21, it was 78% of the time. But then 2022 was 40%. So his kind of graph looks like up and down. So maybe it's saying, now the PPM's going to go back up this year. But look, on To'o at some point. He's always relevant at some point, and he's a guy, we saw it last year, where he can bump a 150. You love having a centre wing in your side, but not just from the start. Wait for Panthers' draw to open up, see what he's priced at, and then jump. And I know it's going to sound repetitive, but that's what a lot of these guys are. But that is how you master the centre wing. A lot of these guys will score well at certain points, but timing is everything in this position.
100%. I agree. And I think, definitely at this position, you've got to find value. You've got to make sure the draw is good, and centre wing is the most important position for draw. I guess early on, I don't really love looking into the draw because I think it does make you a bit undone, but I think you can kind of read it to a degree. But for the centre wings, you just don't want them playing Penrith and Melbourne in the first two.
Especially when you're spending the money, I think the draw does matter. If you don't believe that team's going to do well, then why would you spend that much money on it?
Yeah.
As much as, you could be wrong about the draw, but if you feel, no, I like this draw or I don't like this draw, then I think it's okay to make a decision based off that because it's your opinion. As long as it is your opinion.
100% agree. Number 8, Ruben Garrick, 680,000, priced at a 69.5 without the HIA affected games, which was 3 of them. His average is 79. First 5 of his 7 games are at home. 40% of his games that he plays, 47%, he scores over 80, which is ridiculous. Goal kicking centre wing in that Manly side who is hot. He averaged 80.75 at Brookie last year minus the injury-affected games. So there's a lot to like about Ruben Garrick. I think the only question is the head knocks, him at centre. For me, he's just an elite Supercoach and I'm not worried at all.
Nor am I. I always have him at some point for every year, and he's a must. And last year, because of those HIA affected games and the low scores, he's undervalued. Those first 3 rounds, I love the Cowboys, the Warriors, the Raiders, and 2 of those 3, like you said, one of those or 2 of those 3 first games are at home. I like him. His goal kicking, I don't mind it. Look, the thing is with Garrick, it doesn't matter if it's on the wing, it doesn't matter if it's at centre, it doesn't matter if it's fullback. He's an option in all 3, and it's handy to have a versatile guy like him that if something does happen and he gets moved, it's not really going to matter. You sit him in there, you plug him in there, you know that he's probably not going to get selected for Origin, so you probably have him over that Origin period. He's always, over those periods, he's a must, and especially with Tom going to Origin, if he's not injured, Garrick will be a must over that period. And just, like you said, the draw's good, the goals are good. I think he's underpriced, and he's currently sitting in 28% aside. So he's popular, but I feel like he's a popular one that I'm not willing to start without.
I agree, and 28% of sides is, if you're reading them stats out to me, I would think probably more closer to 40 would own him.
Yep, I agree.
Especially in centre wing in a position where, I guess fullback, there's so many elite options that you can choose from, so you kind of get why they're all 30, 30, 30. But in centre wing, there's not that many standouts in the premium spot. So he's probably 100K underpriced from what he can be. He would be Valentine Holmes' price if wasn't for the HIAs, and he was pretty underwhelming for some people last season. So I love Ruben Garrick. He's a lock in my side, and he's probably my number one centre wing choice.
Yeah, I guess the only negative to go with that is like he did have quite a few HIAs this year. That stuff doesn't just go away. So that's always going to be a risk. But at least this year we've got the flex.
Yep.
So now that we have the flex, at least when that happens, as long as you know what I mean, like at least you're going to feel a little bit better about it this year than last year.
100%. Yeah, so if he gets HIA, he gets ruled out. So, don't go absolutely relying on the lowest scoring player. Don't go skimpy on your front row or something. Just actually have that up your sleeve. Number 10, Ronaldo Mulitalo, 664,200. I don't mind Mulitalo. He has a mixture of Penrith, Cowboys, Rabbitohs, Dogs, Canberra, Manly. So it's pretty good. It's pretty shit. But the stinger here is he averaged 90.2 in his first 6 last year, which is crazy.
Out blocks on fire.
The year before, he averaged 76 in his first 6. So he's someone who starts the season really hot and then seems to taper out later in the year. I think that probably has something to do with maybe his size. His body gets a bit banged up. I talk about this with hookers quite a bit, that they tackle their ass off really early, but then their body just can't handle it, so they don't go as hard. I think this is very similar to Mulitalo, where he's just so hungry for the try line and he starts well. I just remember him burning me last year because there was a guy, rugby league realm, shout out to him. He was very similarly ranked to me. I was in the top 100, and actually no, I think I was like 200th and he was like 150th. And every week I was trying to catch up to him, and Mulitalo just last game just kept getting him over the line. So he's someone who's annoying, but for me, the way he gets his points is very reliant on tries.
Yeah, for that 660 price, he could come out and score like 20. And the thing that's different this year than the past 2 years with those stats you read is his draw, in my opinion, was a lot tougher. And chucking the fact that they're now going to Vegas, how does that have a bit of an impact? And they've got the, 1 week after. So it's like the momentum, he might be impacted by that a little bit. The thing is, the kid can score tries no matter what. But for me, it's just like 660K. Like, he's going to be an option at some point. It's just coming up against Panthers in Vegas first round. Like, I can't resonate that. I'd rather, spend up and get a couple of the guys that we mentioned in the last few rounds. But I've owned Mulitalo at least once the past 3 seasons. So, of course, I'll be looking at him at some point. Just, yet again, look, as you said, I expect Sharks to do well as well. But maybe they don't start as hot as everyone thinks they will. Not as confident.
If you think they're going to start well, I kind of want to group every single one of their centre wings in the same chat then. Kale Iro, Jesse Ramian and Sione Katoa. Kale Iro, 640K, had a base of 41. In his last 7 games, he averaged 79.5. So I actually don't mind him. He learned how to score a try late in the year.
It's hard to pick a guy that was a cheapie and absolutely killed it. It's like, how many times do you pick that the second year? Like, I very rarely do. I need to see that he can replicate what he achieved in the first year. And this will be his first full season. Yeah. He didn't start at round 1 last year.
I do agree. I find it works pretty well sometimes because I find people are a bit scared off to go these people because of that. And I think you're really banking on whether second-year syndrome comes into play or not. I think Kale Iro's much better than second-year syndrome type person.
100%. But I just think for the price and the other options kind of tips out of his favour.
640K, 40K more you get Garrick. Jesse Ramian, 635K, base of 37, and 57% of his games were over 60. So surprisingly, he did really well.
Yeah, all these Sharks guys, they're guys that you get when you've seen a little bit of how they're going and you jump on them for a little form ride. You always you need to have someone in that back line when they're hot. Yep. Because when they're hot, they're hot. So, same thing.
He's one like Sione Katoa. He's one that you definitely go on a run because he needs the tries.
His base is so bad.
His average without Hines was 48.8 and with Hines it was 63.3. So there's a massive difference there of 15.3 in difference. Hines is back in the side, fully fit. That I reckon the Sharks will want to start hot. He's probably the one guy in the side that, not against Penrith in round 1, but he's the one guy in the side that I'm like, he's the kind of guy who has a little bit of upside for you to take a punt on.
What's his price point?
$5.59.
See, at the price, that's a lot better than the other ones that you mentioned. Like that the way with the Sharks play out of their back line, most games when they're scoring quite a few tries, one of those wingers are at least getting one try, and usually when it's Katoa, he's bagging a couple. So look, I don't hate him, but I'm not interested in the only Sharks player I'm interested to start is Hines. Might sound boring, but
I agree. I like Blake Brayley too.
Yeah, he's not bad at the price point, 100%, which you covered in Hawker.
Fletcher Sharp looks like he's going to get that 5'8" roll, 636,000. I guess for me, he based 25, which is pretty low, but he averaged 75.6 on the right wing. So for me, if the experiment doesn't work out early, he's someone who, if he goes to the right wing, I'm pretty interested in. But he'll definitely need to drop probably 135K for me to consider first of all.
Yeah, the thing with Sharp too is like the Knights have a nice draw to start. They do have an early buy. I think it's round 4, I believe. So that's kind of the throw off, spending that money on someone like him. Same thing, second year. But as I said, that wing, they love to score tries on that wing. So it's gold for SuperCoach. And he was scoring it in stack. And he saw, other players do it the year before in that position. So I don't hate Fletcher Sharp, but if he started 5'8", there's no way you could pick him because you just don't have a sample. He might absolutely kill it there, but it's his second year. They got a lot of hype, and I think it's going to be a lot of pressure on him. And with the amount of halves options they have, they're just going to keep shuffling them around. And I personally think Knights, even though they got that nice draw, I'm not really interested in many Knights. I think they're going to really struggle at the start of the year, and I think they'll have a rough year. That's me personally.
I agree. I thought they're going to win the Spoon. I thought that was my...
I see more. I feel like I always think they're going to win the Spoon, but then they're always in and out. They win some games you don't expect them to win. I see more around that 10 to 14 mark. Maybe I could see them clasping in and around the 8. But yeah, I guess there is a world where they are fighting for the Spoon. Sorry, Knights fans.
Yeah, sorry, Knights fans. You interested in Nick Meaney at all at 619,000? By round 2, Parramatta round 1.
There are some Storms, people in the Storm players that I am interested on, especially in the back line, which we'll get to. But not Meaney at that price. Look, Meaney is always a great pod, especially when it comes to that buy period. Yep. Love owning Meaney, and you always want to have a bit of the Storm. Should you not start with the Storm because they've got a buy money? No, I think it's fine to take one here or there. I know a lot of Tino's pretty popular this year at his price point. He's not playing round 1, so I think it's not bad, but it's just. When you're spending that price point there and you think, okay, what centre wings am I missing out on? Like you said, there's going to be centre wings around this price point that are going to go bang, bang, bang the first 3 to 4 weeks. And I feel like having them a buy in that first 4 weeks can really, really hurt. When they're buys after, from 6 onwards, I'm not as worried about because at least by then after 5 weeks, we have 5-week sample sizes to make our decisions a bit more accurately. But when it's starting from the start, you don't have much of a sample size and a buy in there just doesn't help you work it out.
Jermaine Asako, number 15, 616,000. Had a pretty down year compared to the year before. His draw is Souths, Newcastle, Tigers, Broncos, Gold Coast. Herbie is playing inside him. I think that is the absolute killer. He is goal kicking, but apart from the first year at the Dolphins, I haven't seen much from Asako to scream that he needs to be in my side.
Yeah, Zarko's another one of those wingers that goes on a run, and yeah, you saw the stats last year. Farnworth's absolutely killed him. He's always the kind of guy. He dropped pretty low last year. When he drops to the right price, you always look at someone like him because he's a goal kicking winger. It really adds to it. And like I said with Herbie, I really do like the Dolphins draw. I like it to start. We don't know how this coach is going to go. Look, a lot of these teams this year are coming in with a lot of questions. They always do in the pre-seasons, mate. If we had all the answers. We'd be winning SuperCoach every year, but we don't. So we just got to kind of go how we feel, how a lot of you guys play. So no for me to start.
Dylan Lucas starts on the edge for Newcastle, potentially. We see Tyson Frizzell got named in the middle for the trials today, so that's a good sign for Lucas. He's one of the highest basing players before any offloads or tackle busts. Base of 48. He's priced at a 60 average. He's an absolute weapon. He played a few games off the bench last year, but I don't mind him as someone if you want to plug and play and just have a bit of security. But my style of SuperCoach, I feel like he's the kind of guy who probably doesn't tickle the needle very early on for me.
It just depends how you play. Like you said, like I had him in my side for a little bit. I really like him. And I think if you're after stability, he can provide you that stability. Apart from the round 4 bye, like, you know what I mean? They've got Tigers, Dolphins, Titans. He's really good at scoring those tries. He scores those tries and you're looking at like an 80 plus, which is good. The price point isn't bad. Last year, don't forget, like, you know, he's probably underpriced because the games he had last year where he wasn't playing close to 80 minutes. I think the big thing here is if he plays 80, Kai Pearce probably on the bench, but there were times where he was constantly getting switched around. And then even if he gets moved to the centres, he was averaging really well in the centres last year. So, look, I don't hate him. If you want someone that's got a bit of stability but with a try can give you a decent score, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all.
Yeah, I don't mind him either. I think the price is pretty good too, 616K.
Yeah, doesn't break the bank too hard.
Yeah, like I've got someone in my side who's around 550, and that's only a little bit more with no risk at all.
I feel like a lot of these next guys, Sabs, like I don't feel like we need to mention all of them because I feel a lot of them are like the last 5 are irrelevant.
I've skipped half of these. Murray Taulagi, I don't think the Cowboys are going to do well, so I don't like him. Brian Kelly absolutely killed me last year. But number 22 here, Connor Tracy, 587,300. I think the dual fullback centre wing, not the fact that he's dual, but the fact that he is playing fullback and he is available in centre wing, I like. He moved to fullback in round 7 last year. 29 base, average of 61 at fullback. He's priced at a 60 though, so there's not much value there. 38% of his games were over 60. 8 out of 21 of his games, so 40%, were 30s or lower.
Isn't that huge? But like that, he's now hit his average is 60. That now technically makes him a gun. But the alarming stat that you read out was the 29, like, you know, base for a fullback. Doesn't get through a lot of work, and that's why there are going to be games, I guarantee, if Tracy stays fit on that field, he does have some big games in him where he'll be involved in 3 tries and score 3. Like, he has those games in him, but it's handy. Like, the Dogs, like, the thing is, everyone in the Dogs' back line, you look at them and there's a reason for you to risk and start them. I like the Dogs. I feel like out of most teams, I really like their go to start. They do have a buy in round 6. So that's my issue at the moment, is not trying to have too many of them, because if you've got too much of your money tied up in the Dogs, it's going to hurt you in round 6. But at least, as I said before, like, you get a bit of a sample size. So, look, not for me. I know the fullback, having a fullback in your centres is always very tempting, but there is a lot of risks that go with Tracy. And maybe with some of the reasons I said, maybe he can start bang, but...
Yeah, I do like the fact that he's probably in a side where he probably does need to step up and have a few more try assists and tries early on and throughout the year. But, like, for me, the eye test suggests, like, his value to the side is he works a lot. Like, he's good out of yardage, but, you know, looking at the stats, a base of 29, he obviously doesn't do many runs. Like, he's just good on his kick returns, and that's about it by the look of it from his base stats. But,
yeah,
you know, he tries really hard, and 587,000 is probably just a bit much to take a punt on for me for Connor Tracy.
It's not a bad price for a fullback, but just the lack of consistency makes it tough. But the thing is with the Dogs, the Dogs were one of the best defensive teams in the comp last year. If you actually think that this year, you know, they're going to continue that, but this time their attack's going to improve with it. Like back in the day we saw with Penrith, they built on defence and then their attack started to come with it. If you think Bulldogs are heading on the same path, then I think a lot of these Bulldogs backline options are underpriced.
Yep.
Because it means they've got another level to go with if they're scoring a lot more tries. Last year they had Drew Hutchinson in the halves. Like all those things would have been impacting their attack too. So that's why there are so many Dogs that I'm keen on. Like, it's not funny.
I do like the Dogs as well, but like for me, yeah, just the outside backs. Like, I've got Karaz. I don't need any more, to be honest. Like, I've got Karaz. I'm probably going to go Burton as well. So I guess we'll see how we go there. Number 23, Paul Alamotti, 585,800. Didn't play many games at centre. He's priced at a 60, but when he wasn't injured, the games he played at centre, he averaged 62. So a little bit of value there, not too much. But I guess for me, if he's 585K, you're banking on a hot Penrith side and potentially going down that left edge a lot more. Hopefully, no Luai there. They kind of use that left edge a lot more. Luai kind of...
Alamotti will probably play right because doesn't Tago normally play left?
No, Tago plays
right. You know, Alamotti will play left. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, as you said, that's going to burn him.
What, no Luai?
No. Like, being on the left could potentially burn him. Like,
yeah.
It's a tough one because
I do see Cleary like roaming to the left a lot more.
We hope he's going to roam, and I guess the thing is too, like either way, it depends how you think IPAP's going to go too. Because if IPAP's going to bust through that line, send an offload, then that's where Alamotti really can. Like I think they can build a pretty that's going to be IPAP. Alamotti next to on the left, that's a pretty stocky left side, and then it depends who they chuck on that wing out. So imagine if it's Toto out there, that's a pretty stocky back line. So it's going to be interesting. Just with Penrith, even as a Panther supporter, I have a lot of questions. Yeah. Because I have a lot of questions, I want to see it, and I guess maybe we can link Tago in with this chat.
Yep.
I just think if you were going to take on the risk on the Panthers and you really think they're going to start better, I would go Tago instead of Alamotti, which is absolutely crazy that I'm saying that to you, but for 501,000, he's at a good price. That his average with Nathan Cleary, I can't remember what it is on the
68 with Cleary, 40 without him,
which is huge. And last year, I know there was a couple of incidences where injuries, which he just absolutely peppered from the opposite team, but he started so hot last year.
He did.
So, if I had the balls and I wanted a Panthers back line, I would risk it with someone like Taylor. Because the thing is, if you risk it at someone at this price and you get it wrong, there are so many options. Just be willing to trade and jump to the guy on fire. But it's a big balls pod.
For me, I guess Cleary's on that right side. I like Tago, but if last year didn't happen, I'd be all over Tago. I just feel like we saw too many lazy games from him, and maybe that means he pulls his ass.
If he pulls, he's got so many people breathing down his neck because you've got Jesse McLean there that will want to come on to wing. You can move Casey Sessions, and you saw in that trial match, towards the end, there is a lot of backline options from youngsters that the Panthers have. I'm not saying that they're not going to favour Tago. He's on a pretty heavy contract at the Panthers, but at the same time, if he kind of there is room for him to improve, and if he can improve, then that's going to only improve for SuperCoach because you've seen this guy can attack the ball. It's just his consistency which scares you. I think he's going to be an option at some point. I know a lot of people, I know when I was talking about Panthers with Barnesy absolutely just despised Tago, but I don't despise him that bad. I see a world where he kills it.
Well, last year, started the year, 46, 145, 100 in the first three. He averaged 97 in the first three, and he had Melbourne, Parramatta, and the Broncos. So he had a pretty tough draw, but, being alongside Nathan Cleary, that's what it does to you. So, he's going to be the number one beneficiary of Cleary being hot.
And the thing is, Tago doesn't have to go crazy all the time. If you think you're scared he's going to grab it, if he starts well and he can go up in value, say if he did similar to what he did last year, all of a sudden he goes from 500k up to 600 real quickly, and then when he starts going that down, boom, jump over to one of these high price guys that might have dipped a little bit. So there's a world where if you really do think Panthers, even though with their draw they're going to start hot, I think there's going to be a lot of points in that Panthers Sharks game. I really do.
Las Vegas, we saw plenty of points in the Super Bowl on Monday. So
Cleary eats up the big moments, man, and there'll be lines up there that'll be trying to go toe to toe with him. So I think it'll be a high-scoring game.
He does. Number 27, Bradman Best, 564,900. Take out his injury-affected games. He's priced at a 6. His average will be 60. He's priced at a 57. Tigers, Dolphins, Gold Coast bye. Dogs, Tigers. Pretty good draw. I think Bradman Best is pretty good shout, to be honest. I don't mind him. I guess we can pair him with Greg Marju. When Bradman Best is in the side...
Schiller.
Sorry?
And Schiller as well. I guess you can group the three.
I didn't really do anything on Schiller, but we can talk about him, whether you like him or not. That right wing is actually pretty hot for Newcastle. They tend to go right a lot more last year. But Greg Marju, when Bradman Best is out of the side, he averages 45. When he's in the side, he averaged 71 last year. So priced at a 513. I've got someone who's 550k, and I feel like Marju is probably a safer bet, to be honest.
I know who you're going to allude to after this, but I'm not keen on Best. Schiller, it could be an interesting one, but he'd definitely be a wait and see. Look, Marzu, we know what he can do, and last year he dropped off of that. But there's been years that we come into the season and people are willing to spend 700 plus K on this guy. He's coming into the season 513k. To me, with the 500k I've got, if I start to get a bit of cold feet, I could see myself switching to Marzu. If they didn't have that buy, I think I'd be a little bit more keen. But the thing is, there's potential there. We know what he can do, and I think the price is right for him. And like those other guys we mentioned earlier, I think at 500k, you can save 200k instead of going that top shelf. I think partnering him with a guy like Garrick will really help you centre wing early.
100% agree. I think going Karaz and Garrick early is like the way to go. But
100%. But some people, if you want to have a more balanced side, it is hard for a lot of builds to do that. If you want to have a decent hooker and you want to have a 5'8", and if you want a well balanced side, it is hard to do that. I did have it for a little bit, but then I was like, oh, my 5'8's crap, my hooker's crap.
Roger Tour versus Sheck. We did talk about Blaze Talangi in the 5'8 podcast, so go back to that if you want to hear us talk about him. I did skip Braden Burns, actually. Apparently him and there is someone else. Him and Robert Derby are fighting out for that right wing spot. Apparently Sammy Velame is nowhere to be seen. Like, he's not going to make that wing spot. So it's going to be Robert Derby or Braden Burns. Braden Burns, surprisingly, 559k in his limited games last year. He has looked electric every time. And, Kyle Felt had a resurgent year last year with Drinkwater feeding him that ball. Braden Burns is probably a bit much, but I think if Robert Derby gets the spot, then you're definitely going to pull the trigger on him. But, Braden Burns, at least for draft. Probably.
Yeah, potentially. I just think, like all the reasons you said, if the Cowboys start pretty ordinary and we don't think they're going to do too well this year, then obviously if he was on there and he could get the sack at any point if Derby's killing it in New South Wales Cup. The kid's been highly touted. So it's going to be an interesting one because right now a lot of these builds are counting on a lot of these cheapies to get named, and there is a world where all those ones are expecting to get named don't. And then that's going to be carnage and people will be shedding less guns. So, yeah, look, there's no way, even like with all the reasons you said, there is no way in the world I would ever go Burns to start. The Cowboys, they're going to be leaving a couple of guys out, no matter who they choose. So I feel like because of that, people like Purdue could miss out, or they've got a lot of options in that back line, and if they're not performing, that's where they're gonna be making changes.
Yep. Rogers Tuivasa Sheck, 553k, average 77.5 on the wing last year, priced at a 57. Are you interested in him?
Oh, there was points where I was really, really keen on RTS. I was listening to a few podcasts where they'll ram me up, and I'm just going, I love him on the wing or at fullback. The price isn't so bad. Like that is a good price, man, for RTS. It's just like a lot of people don't have confidence in the Warriors, but he's only at 7%. I like the ownership. Like I said, if you get some of these guys wrong, they start hot, then you can just jump to them. But obviously the key here with this whole preseason is you want to start with guys that do well, because then while other people are trying to do that kind of stuff and get the guy they missed, you can either save trades or jump ahead and keep moving one step ahead. So that's why your starting team is important. It's not the end of the world if you don't start hot, but look, I like RTS. Like, big question marks over the Warriors, like just of who they lost. Like they're a tough one to gauge. I do love Andrew Webster. I do like the way he coaches. He come from a good system in Penrith. So like at the same time, I do think they might go a little bit better than a lot of people think. I know a lot of people have him fighting for the spoon. I do think they can, but yeah, look, I wouldn't, put anyone from starting with him. But there's just a lot of questions that is why I leaned against it. I probably prefer Marziu over him right now.
Completely agree.
Unless he was at fullback, then everything changes.
Yeah, I guess the thing with RTS is, you averaged 77.5 on the wing last year, 57 for the season. There's going to be more ball go to the left, in my opinion. We saw in the trials, at least, Luke Metcalf was swinging both sides of the field. They're not going to be just right side dominant like they have been in years past. So I think Dallin for an option this year is probably not someone we want to look at just because SJ's out of the side. We've still got Chance there who sweeps into that backline play really well. But a lot more ball's going to go on that left side, and I'm very excited to see how Roger goes. But I just think with the ceiling that he has, he probably doesn't have one. And I don't think he's going to hurt you if you don't have him. Number 33, I've got Selwyn Cobbo. This is the guy I do have in my side. Did you guess?
Yeah, I knew it was Cobbo. Yeah. I knew you were hitting his horn. Yeah.
Average 60.8 on the wing in 2022 or 2023. I don't know where I've got that from, but 2023. He's priced at a 56 though, so not too far off his average, but I just feel like he's kind of at a crossroads in his career with Madge coming in, and if he starts on the wing, it means he's probably, put his what's the word? He's put his thumb. What's the saying?
Stamp
He's knuckled down at training. He's knuckled down at training, and he's copped the Madge has come into the side, and I think Madge can get the best out of him and the Broncos. Ben Hunt potentially starts on that right side early on if Adam Reynolds is out of the side, and we saw what Ben Hunt and Lomax did last year. If Adam Reynolds is out, I'm all in on Selwyn Cobbo. Even if Adam Reynolds is in, I still like him.
Yeah, see, one to kind of disagree with you. I just haven't been keen on him at all season. I can see all those points, and I agree with your points. I'm just not feeling it. Like, Cobbo does have those moments, and although we expect the Broncos to do well, I think there's a world where they might start slower than what you think. There's a lot of things. Madge isn't like, everyone's acting like, Madge is a wizard. He's not. He's had a few good seasons. He was great for the Blues. He's won a comp before, but at the same time, look at all these other coaches that were highly touted come in. They don't instantly snap their fingers and get results. I know Wayne come in and he started the Dolphins on fire, but then they didn't finish the 8. So the Broncos had such a fall off year that I think it may take time to build. Their draw isn't it's pretty good. I am keen on the Broncos, but there is a world, so that's why I don't want to take a risk with.
You don't want to go
someone
all out.
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm really keen on Walsh. I currently have Walsh over Latrell, which might be a huge call. It's not the fullback podcast, but I think I'd rather that. I don't want to go too much down where I want to have a look at options. As I said, that's the best part about the centre wing this year. There are so many options if you're willing to spend a bit of money. So it's just kind of trying to pick the ones that you feel best about. If you're wrong, it's not going to be hard to get to them.
Yeah, and I guess recently I've been a bit more cold on Selwyn Cobbo just because, to me, he's not a hungry player at the best of times, and I want someone
so on and off.
Yeah, I don't want someone who's going to check out of games, and I want someone who's constantly looking for the ball. So, for me, the Marju chat has really got me interested. So for 37k less, I do like Marju. AJ Brimson, available at centre wing, looks like he's potentially going to play 5'8" this year, which is really, really good. 539k. Played halves one game in 2024 for 67, but in 2023, he averaged 64 for the year, averaged 69 at 5'8". So he played fullback for the rest of the year, actually averages better at 5'8" than he does at fullback in that sample size. So for me, 539k by round 1 is the tricky thing, but I actually really like it.
I think a buy round 1 helps you if you're keen on him because you can just wait and have a little look and see if you're right. But I can't trust the Titans have too many rotations with they're probably Carter Gordon might not make a spot into side and he's just killing it in the preseason bowl report. So how many times I've seen Brimson not even be in the side? Oh, now he's playing centre. Now he's on the bench. Now he's here. To me, there's so much uncertainty with his role. Although those numbers speak the truth, there's just no way I can do it. I can't trust him. I've never owned Brimson, and I kind of at this point am just look. If I saw the Titans come out firing, he's killing at 5'8", then you go, okay, he's killing it. The Titans are doing well, then I can trust his security. Oh crap, the Titans are doing crap. They'll rotate through there so fast, and because Brimson is such a flexible player, that also kind of hinders him as a super coach option, in my opinion.
Stephen Crichton.
He's my guy.
I feel like this is the guy.
This is the guy. You might talk me crazy. I was listening to Barnsley's thing of him, and they were kind of not shitting on him in a sense, but look, this guy comes with a lot of risks. I know one of the guys in grad, so I think it was Marty, was talking about him. When he talked about him, I was like, I don't want people to get it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he said Stephen Crichton will be relevant this year in that group.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with Marty. I was just hoping he didn't say it because I was hoping he stayed under the radar a bit. He's currently in 8% aside, so I think a lot of maybe new people come in and go, oh my god, Stephen Crichton's an absolute gun, and at this price, I might go, oh my god, Look, there's a lot of risk that comes with Stephen Crichton. He has such a low floor, and his base power isn't great. But the reasons why I like him is, look, when he was at Penrith, he did average 60 and 64 in 22 and 23. But like I said, I believe in the Dogs this year, and because I believe in the Dogs, if I can't start with Kiraz and Crichton are together, I've got the next best thing. I'm spending 200k less, and I've got it with him. I think those two can really form a handy partnership if they're together, and that's just more so if I don't have Kiraz, I want a piece of that Doggies backline. So if I'm right and the attack really kills it this year, I can jump on it. But because I believe the attack's going to improve, I really think that Crichton does have some more tries in him and can get more involved. It's his second year at the club. It's his second year in the role of captaincy. If an injury happens to, Burden, then all of a sudden he's kicking goals. I just think at some point, even if, look, as I said, if I can afford it, I will go Crichton to Kraz. Right now I can't. If I can, I will. But I don't hate it for the price. Like, as I said, I don't mind risking it. The doggies draw is awesome. I've got 5 rounds to have a look at him before their bye. And if I get it wrong, I can just jump off or look to go up to Kraz. But I've just got this feeling with him. I don't know if it's the the panther inside me. I've never owned Crichton before in SuperCoach. And there was bits in the past where he go on a little bit of a run. I just got this some kind of feeling for him, and I like him at the ownership and that. I know it's a risky one, but some of these guys, taking a risk and something like this paying off, these are the kind of moments of SuperCoach I love.
Yeah, I guess for me, a lot of risk, not much upside. He had 2 games over 100 last year, 101, 128. And there's a lot of games in the 30s, 33, 25, 24, 36, 19, 34. In the first 10 rounds, he averaged 44.9, which is nothing. For me, the ceiling with him is, in the first 4 rounds, could he jag a couple of 70s? Is that the best case scenario for him?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, I'm looking at the last year's attacking stats and I go, I believe the Dogs are going to be way better this year. So because of that, I think he's undervalued based on that. And like we said, there were heaps of games last year where there was Drew Hutcho there. That attack was really flat. The constant change with the forwards. I feel like with the Dogs, the stability of this year, I'm telling you, there's going to be a lot of SuperCoach homes. Whether it's Crichton, but there's a lot of guys in here. Right now, I currently have 3 Dogs. And as it stands, it looks like I'll probably go in with minimum of 2, maybe 3. Round 6, you might say round 6 bye, 5 weeks is enough time to kind of gauge. I'm not worried about a round 6 bye if I've got 3 big plays out, but as I said, I'm going to have either Crichton or Kraz in my side unless we get no cheapies and all of a sudden we're going back to the drawing board. But look, I'm not. Yeah, I get why people would look at him not like him, but I just really like him. And at 8% at that price, the price is right. Most years you come into Crichton, it costs you more than 600k. That's enough of a price to gamble, and I'm taking this gamble over Marzhew at this stage because I like the Dogs so much.
Yep.
And if I don't have Kraz, this is a way where I feel like I can feel a little bit better out of it if they're both on the right-hand side, which I believe they will be both on the right-hand side. Kraz normally plays right-hand side because last year it was Sherry and Josh Adokar on the left.
I guess just with the Bulldogs and Penrith, he was never really SuperCoach relevant at Penrith either.
64 and 60 average. I get what you're saying, but there were games where he did have big, and right now he's not priced on that.
Yeah, I guess that's also he has the 64 average in him, so potentially last year was a down year, and then with the Bulldogs attack, it could be.
I just want him for the good draw at the start, a good run, and then look to segue him up.
If it doesn't work out. Yep.
It's not. I'm not saying I'm going to have him for the whole season unless he comes out and goes boom, 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 and shocks us all. And it happens every now and then where a player has an anomaly year to their SuperCoach stats, and look, we know how good of a player he is. So
potentially could. Burns was pretty good with the goal kicking last year, but Crichton is a very good goal kicker.
He's good, but he's.
There's any chance that he could take over. I don't think he does.
No, I don't think he will. It's more so if an injury comes in, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God. The Dogs start scoring points, then that's when, you know what I mean? He starts to get an option, and it's kind of, But
Ali Leitawa.
You said earlier you wanted to talk about him.
513,900, just a tad less expensive than Stephen Crichton. He's priced at a 52, but he actually averaged 58 last year, so he's already 6 points undervalued. He had limited games last year, 5 games, and didn't reach that threshold. I like him from the eye test. He's a very SuperCoach-friendly player for the Warriors on that left edge. If you think Roger's going to get a lot of ball and a lot of tries, then Ali Leitawa is surely going to be front and centre of that.
Yeah, there is a few contention for spots at the Warriors, and I was listening to the podcast with a Super Warriors fan talking, and the way he was they've been watching Leitao come up from the grades, and they really think he's going to cement his spot on that side, and all those things are good. I think he's got a lot of potential. It's risky. As I said, I prefer to go for a more staple guy in a club where I think that's going to perform well, rather than one with questions. And the other thing too is with the Warriors, I don't know if they're going to do too well from the start, and because of that, there's a cap of how many players I'm willing to have, and they've got a lot of value in their side.
Yep.
So I prefer if I've already got Metcalf and I've got a cheapie or something I'd rather just pick a couple, and then move on. And I'd probably prefer to spend the extra 40K on RTS rather than Leotau. I think it's a bit safer.
He just reminds me of Tony Staggs the year before he broke out. Like, just really Supercoach friendly tackle bus offloads. I think he's going to have a good season. Whether I have the balls to start with him is another question. I like a lot of guys at this price, but yeah, I'm very interested. Number 56 gets our Carl McGrath start of the week. Carl McGrath has come on as a new sponsor of the show. Start of the week, Gerald Skelton, 499,200. He averaged 64 last year, but he's priced at a 50. That's 14 points value already. A base of 35. He based 54 in a game. And in there was 3 games where he played on the wing 80 minutes. He based 47, 60, and 45 in base and power. And there was a game where he did 27, so it was a bit of a lower one. But this guy's a base stat machine. And Carl McGrath, I just got to tell you about him while I get this stuff up. Oh my God. He was actually a sponsor of the Champions podcast prior to this, but obviously the Champions are not going around, we think, this year. But get Carl to do your tax return and he will legally maximize your tax refund, whether it's just a basic tax return or accounting for things like rental properties, capital gains on share trading or crypto trading. Carl can help you and record everything correctly. No job is too big or small. If you have a small individual tax return, right through to businesses run through company, partnership, or trust, even self-managed super funds, Carl can help you with that. Being a small business, you'll be speaking directly to him. He'll do your work, no work overseas done by junior staff. Carl does everything himself. No matter where you are in Australia, he can help you out via FaceTime, via Zoom. And being very small, his overheads are very small, so he can pass on the savings to his clients. If you need more than just a tax return, Carl can help you in all aspects of accounting and data entry. For listeners of the podcast, he has a special offer, $110 for a basic tax return. Even if it is very complicated and you're a business, he'll still do it for $110, and he'll chat a bit of SuperCoach on the side as well. So head to the link in our bio, hit up Carl if you want your tax refund done. And you know, I was on the phone to him for like 2 hours the other day just talking SuperCoach. So Carl's a really good lad, and if you don't have a set accountant, head over to Carl. He's a legend. But Gerald Skelton, what are your thoughts on Gerald Skelton?
Man, I haven't had him in any of my sides, but I've been so close to at that trade button. Yet again, it's just having too many Tigers. I need to see how they perform. I know they might say, boring, you go, Mikey, you've got to take some risks on some of them, and I know that, and I have. The thing with Skelton is, I like the stats you said, but we only got to get a sample size of 4 games last year. And then the year before that was only 3. And I think although it'll be a base stat monster, it's just you want to see him stability. Like the Tigers do have a lot of backline options. Obviously, so signing for the Dogs, and I thought he was a gun at the Dogs. And I thought, how are they not keeping him over Wilson? Like, imagine him at like there as a full-time spot. But yeah, I just want to see him start massive this year. He reminds me, like, you know, I feel like he could be a SuperCoach option when we first saw Marzhew, Barnstorm in. I think you can. I definitely think at some point I'll be grabbing him. And to be honest, the Tigers have a really nice straw to start. If you're really keen on him, the price is right. Like, to be honest with you, like, you know, I've said the guys like Crichton and Marzhew. Like, to be honest, I could see where Skelton is a way better option than both those two guys. I think it is. It's just... It's to me, I just don't want another Tiger. I've got so many Tigers in my side currently. Like, I could do it. If I start getting cold feeding on Crichton and I can't afford Carraz and I don't like that Marzhew's got to buy him round 4, then I like him. The Tigers don't have a bite around 12 as well. And Knights, Cowboys, Dolphins, Warriors, Broncos. But can they get off the spoon? Are they going to be better?
He's in my side.
Oh,
he's in my side now.
Is that recently or just now?
No, just now for Cobbo, because I'm not convinced on Cobbo.
I prefer him a lot more to Cobbo. Like I currently I have him in and around, but what's his percentage? You talk about him. I'll find that.
I'll have a look. But Gerald Skelton, I guess the thing that worries me, I have seen reports that Taruva potentially shifts to the centre because Lualiti is actually really gunning for a wing position. But whether he actually does play centre, they've got Dewey, Olam. There's a lot of options that can happen there. So the drop of a hat, Skelton could get dropped like he did at the Bulldogs. I kind of get why he didn't get a spot at the Bulldogs, but I think the Tigers need him, especially like if Taruva does go to the centres, they probably need a winger that has yardage game in him.
And a bit of a bigger body too, because Taruva's tiny.
I'd love to have Taruva and Skelton as their back two because Buller in yardage isn't that great, and he can just be the tip of the iceberg. The kickers will probably kick to Buller every single time because they won't want it to go to Taruva and Skelton. But with Skelton, the fact that he had a base and power game of 54 and 45, 42, like, they're just numbers that I love to see, and he's got that in him. He's like the Greg. We knew when Greg Marju finally got a spot that he was going to be an option. For Newcastle 2 years ago, he was an option once he came into the side. Nobody started with him because he didn't get picked round 1, remember?
Yeah.
If Skelton gets picked round 1, then he's a huge option. We know he's been, for a long time, he's been someone who has been highly touted, but he's finally going to get his crack now for the Tigers. I guess the only issue is, are the Tigers going to get the ball to him?
That's the hard part. Like, you're banking, like, you're having too many Tigers players, you're banking on them improving, and what if they don't? Skelton's only owned by 7%. Like, to be honest, you think it'd be a touchdown, but that's still really good. And I think there is a world where, like, say the Tigers start on fire. If the Tigers start on fire and they're scoring tries, I think, you're going to be looking at Skelton. The price isn't bad. I think if he was 400K, I think almost, like, that changes how much I'm like, no, I have to have him at that price.
100% agree.
But that price, like... Yeah, look, I'm interested, but right now I have him like a couple guys ahead. But TLT, I could see myself pending in. I want to see him in a trial.
It does worry me. He was named in the trial for the Tigers this week, and the Tigers weren't. They're not full strength, so that does worry me.
But I feel like a lot of the time when they change clubs, they like to get the guys that don't know their systems into the trial matches.
I guess Taruva's not going to come in and play. Like, he's won 2 premierships, so probably not going to come in and play straight away. Skelton probably needs to definitely...
Depends on the fitness and stuff too. Like, all of them have their own training regime, so like it depends.
But I really like him, and if he's named round 1, I think he's highly in consideration for me. We talked about Adam Dewey last week, but I think you said in the chat you were thinking similar, or was that someone else?
No, it was me. I had him as my backup 5'8", but since then I've started to feel like I'm taking 2 risks and 2 5'8". I feel like I wanted a gun, so I've currently got Burden in, and I took Dewey out to get Burden in. But at the same time, if I don't go gun 5'8" because there's not enough cheapies, Dewey will be my backup. But look, he'd probably be better as like a centre option, but the reason why I prefer him at 5'8" is because there's like no cheapies there. So that's the only reason why I prefer him up there. But you spoke about Dewey in the 5'8" in the Haas podcast. I feel like we don't need to go over him, but I don't mind him. I think he's not getting enough credit to what he can. I think he can be a really good option this year.
I think just with me, like, there's just something telling me that
injury clouds.
Yeah,
there's a lot of risk with Dewey.
I don't like being hesitant because of injuries, but it just feels like the spot's not fully his yet.
Oh, 100%. And like, say it was 100% his and he was kicking goals, and that's what makes him an attractive option. But.
So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on him early. Casey McLean for 43. If he gets a spot, dare I say he'll play left wing. He played left wing for the Kiwis, played left centre when he fielded in for the side last year. So if he does get that wing spot, he'll play left, which means To'o will play right.
Yeah.
Are you interested in Casey McLean if he is playing left?
I looked at him. I got some guys at similar price that I preferred him just because, like, I think the start for Penrith's tough. Although Penrith are a quality side, like, I just don't have super confidence. I think, like, last year he showed games where he could score a decent amount of base, but I genuinely believe, like, a lot of people are like hoping it's going to be Jesse. Casey proved last year, played quite a few stack of games in there, although he's a younger brother, and at one point, Jesse did have the spot, like, he was ahead of him in the pecking order, then because of injury, he was injured. His brother kind of jumped him in the pecking order because he done so well last year, and I think he will be the left winger.
Yep.
We'll have to on the right. Like, look, I like it. I like him next to Alan Motti, and like we said, those big bodies, that could be handy. We saw that he can score some tries, and like, if he doesn't start hot at the start, there'll be a period where Penrith draw shapes up. He could be an interesting option. You know what I mean? Like, anyone on the back of you always want to have a piece at Penrith backline when they're singing, but that left side boasts some questions this year.
Moses Sully, 470,000. Seen a lot of chat about him recently. Maybe this could be his breakout year. He's moving to the right to accommodate for Valentine Holmes. I think the right suits him a lot more. So average of 48, 47, 52 the last few years. For me, you're relying on too much of a shift in attitude, I guess, or style of play. So I probably won't look at him early on, but the price is attractive, 470. I do like a lot of other players at the price. Jack Howarth, 426,000. His average was 43.5 last year, but when he started at centre, his average was 52.8. So already 9 points value there. I really like him. I don't like that he has the buy in round 2, but if you're buying him for 426, you probably can cover him.
I currently have him. I've had him in my side for a while, and he hasn't left.
Yep.
Like as I said, like if there was a plethora of options named, I could probably shed him because he's currently my third centre wing. But I'm not worried about the buy. If most years I spend absolutely like someone like Half would be my top option. This year I've got 2 guys more high price. I'm not worried having to have one of these guys at that price on a buy in the second round when you've got some big guys that can still score good numbers. Obviously, if all those cheapies are named on my bench, your Toyas, Purdue, then it make me with more confidence to start him because then I'd be happy to play one of those 2 guys that week. Normally, in centre when you're always playing a cheapie at some point, but I just think, we've been waiting for Half to come into first grade for quite a while. He finally got his go last year. He didn't play a full year there. I think his first full preseason, he gets a spot in round 1. I really think this kid's going to, he's had his time. It was a slow production for him to come into the NRL. So I think now he's there. I think, he's one of the guys that we're going to look in the next year or so. He's going to have a breakout year. And we saw glimmers of that last year. His base wasn't too bad. I just want a piece of that Storm backline.
Yep.
And the price is right. I really like Half. I really rate him.
And unlike
13% owns a lot higher than...
Yeah, I really like him. He was in my side all preseason until I got the Cobbo bug and was really sold on Cobbo. But unlike Cobbo, Jack Howarth, every time he has the ball, he looks hungry to break the line, which I love.
He's so tall. He's just a big body and he's there playing off. Look at the halves. If Munster says a bit more... Because I'm pretty sure... Isn't he a left? Does he play left?
He plays left, yes.
So if Munster being back, it could only be better. There was a lot of games he didn't play without Munster last year.
Yeah.
So.
And Munster's much better at the face ball to the centre than he is to the second rower. So I do like it. He nearly scored in the grand final last year. Some people would argue that he did. I don't think so. But
and I don't think so, but I'm probably not the person to ask.
But let's hope he kicks on. And he's been on a $500,000 contract for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Being in reserve grade, so I think Melbourne are going to want him to pay dividends now.
Yeah, and only time in there, the time, especially at a club like the Storm, I think that only helps you with the systems they have in place, and the price isn't too bad. I prefer him to someone like Skelton, honestly, because it's just an extra set. Although we've seen with Skelton, I feel like in a team at the Storm, look how much more money you're saving. That 80K can be used to bump up elsewhere.
Marcelo Montoya, 408,000. Josh Adokar averaged 55 last year. If you want a bit of that backline for the Bulldogs like you're talking about, Adokar averaged 55, which was his highest since 2021 at Melbourne. Montoya averaged 44 last year. In his best year, sorry. So could be a bit of value there if enough goes to the left side.
But is he guaranteed for that spot? A lot of people are expecting he's guaranteed. Wilson was good on that wing last year, and they did like him. So, I think they've got him, and you think, they've got him, replacement Adokar. Potentially not. I think it's a bit of coverage. They lost Skelton and Adokar, and now they've got a handy. Now they've got, Wilson and Montoya, and one becomes a backup. One will start.
Question. Wilson was primarily a right winger.
Correct.
If we find out that Wilson gets in the side and Karaz is a left winger, does that change your mind on Karaz at all?
I don't think it does. As I said, I prefer him on the right. I definitely prefer him on the right, and I'd prefer... It might make me a bit more colder on Crichton because I really want Karaz on his outside. Yeah. I want a good finisher like him. But no, Karaz has the base that it doesn't matter. I don't think the side will matter too much. He went to centre, and although he wasn't amazing at centre, he was still okay. So the thing is, that wouldn't worry me at all off him. But as I said, I think that right-hand side, I just like that a lot more for him. But obviously, being on the left, he's still got Burden. I think the Dogs have a lot more points to score this year. So, I wouldn't be too worried. You just want him playing wing. But yeah, look, Montoya, if he locks down that spot for that price, it is definitely worth mentioning because that's 100%. But I'm not too confident. Yeah, I don't think that's locked in for sure.
Yep. Bear with us. There's a couple more, not many more to go though. Ty Munro, 397 left wing. We know the left wing is a hot property for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. We think the Rabbitohs are going to do well. Obviously, I've skipped Campbell Graham, which on my
possible hand injury, and with how high owned he was at the point, fair enough to skip him. The fact that he's picked up another injury after coming from an injury, he's someone that I would have no confidence in starting. You want to wait and see. And you mentioned Munro, and there is another one he's cheapy that I like, that which kind of makes me prefer these two guys. So, yeah, Monroe, 15% owned, 397K. We've just been waiting for this guy just to stay there, kick on. He's a guy like an absolute freak of a try scorer. I've seen him in the New South Wales Cup, and we've seen him in the finals there, playing for the Bunnies there. If he gets a full season under there, especially on that left side, like what happens when Johnston comes back? But I guess it doesn't matter. If he can just do a job there for those first 10 rounds, you know what I mean? There's value to be made there. I've had him in and out of my side, but currently don't have him, and I probably wait. Like, I think, like Johnston, doesn't have a super amount of base. He's just a very quick guy. You want him to score lots of tries. And I'm not as confident as everyone else that the Bunnies are going to start as well as what they have. I currently only have one Bunny player.
Latrell?
Which is, no, I don't have Latrell. Like, I know that.
Schuster?
No, it's the guy that I guess now you've segued me into it, unless you wanted someone to. Do you have anything else on Monroe?
No.
Isaiah Tass.
Yeah.
I love Isaiah. How is this guy, like, why aren't people talking about him? Well, maybe I should just keep it to someone like, why, like obviously you got to believe that he's going to start. He's in 4% of sides, and the price is at 327K. He had those moments where there was one point where he was like 400ish, mid 500K center. He was named in the trials this weekend. Obviously, he needs to start. There's a bit more competition. I guess it's going to be hard if Wyden is playing 5'8" and Cody doesn't play in round one. You see Tass in there. It depends who's in there with, but Johnson's injured, so you're going to have Latrell, Munro, Wyden. If Campbell Graham's out, Tass.
Well, Tass is going to play right wing.
Or wing. But if I think, like the particular size I've seen, I think if Wyden ends up playing 5'8" for that first game, he'll play centre.
Yeah, but then he shifts to right wing.
Which I don't hate either. Like,
yeah.
I know that right wing's not as favoured as what it normally is, but at 327K, I think I'll take the punt on someone like Tass.
I actually think their right wing was pretty good last year. We obviously saw the Gagai brother, Jacob Gagai.
He scored a stack of
tries.
tries. Yeah,
a lot of tries on
that's a
that
good
right
point.
wing. So, but my issue is new halfback. So I guess we have to wait and see how that turns up. But
I think Walker will float either way.
I actually don't mind Tass, but I think we potentially might get enough cheapies to bypass him. We've got. I guess we're going to go through them right now.
I get what you're saying, but yeah, 4% owned. I just think if we can 4% own, Jag to lock down a spot. We know the thing is, he's not like a cheap new guy coming in. We know how good Tass can be. Like, I rate him.
Yeah,
you know, he's had experience in and around there, and he just got unlucky when they made some of their signings that he kind of took a back foot. And Campbell Graham's injured all the time, so
Tass 327. Do you like him or Billy Smith more, who's priced at a 30, averaged 56 in 2023? But priced at 30, so there's...
Oh, like the amount I'm more keen on Tass to Billy Smith is huge. I've seen like Billy Smith in here. I do not like Billy Smith as an option.
Yeah, I don't like him.
You constantly, like every year is like, oh, yep, he's finally going to be an option. He beats an option, then he gets hurt. The Roosters have a lot of moving pieces, and, you know, you got... I'm not even going to try and say his name because you said...
Mark Nwangawituase.
Yeah, you killed it last time. I'm really bad at pronunciation. I know Tim and Jake watching this probably want me to. I don't even know how to start that name. But Toya, you know, we've got, you know, obviously Young's locked into the spot, Tupou's locked into the spot, but then there's Powga. There's so many moving pieces in the Roosters that can he lock a spot down? I'm not confident. If we had such a lack of cheapies and I had to take some of these 300K guys, yeah, if his name to start round one, then I'll take a risk, but I don't like him compared to all these other options.
317. Let's go down to Jackson Purdue, 257. Average 56.3 starting centre last year. Do you like him?
100%.
Looks like you'll get the left centre role.
A half moved into centre, and he looks so good there. Like, I know you say that it looks like he might, but I just, if I was a Cowboys coach, I'd be putting Laybutt and him in my centre pairing, like Purdue in my centre pairing. But they've said Valemi's got a spot locked. Not Valemi. Valea's got a spot locked in. So there's a part of me that actually thinks we can get burnt and he doesn't get a spot. Yeah. He's very highly owned. Everyone's got him in their sides. I think there's a world where he doesn't get named, and instead we've got Laybutt and Valea. So yeah, 100%. If he's in there, no brainer, must have.
Yep. And a couple more cheapies: Robert Toya, Tamale. We've obviously got a couple more. There's Derby. Which one are you highest on? Obviously, Tamale was named in the trials.
I don't think Tamale's going to name. I think Asoma looked so good last week. Obviously, it's going to be a bit skewed because Albert Hopewade, he's
unavailable round one. Yeah,
exactly. So it's going to be hard. But realistically, who gets named is going to be, you know, the next one in that back line. But It's tough. If I can avoid not having to start Tamale, even if he's named in that round one side, if I think it's only there for Albert for 1 week, I want to avoid him if I can. But I'm willing to go someone like him and risk it at the price just so I can have other guns. But same with Derby. I hope Derby gets a go, but I'm not confident. There's a lot of these guys. Like same with, Toya. Like I feel like he'll be a really good option once he gets his go, but it's just will he get his go? That's going to be the tough part. But apart from that, I think the main thing that I think we can summarise on Savs is that there are a lot of options in the centre wings. I kind of like how open it is. And just if you're feeling hot on a player and you listen to these podcasts and people are peppering, look, go for it. We haven't won before.
Well, yeah, also, I think you've got to take a punt on at least one.
Yeah.
One's got to be a flyer.
And you'd rather, like, punting, you know very well yourself, Savs. You're very good at taking a punt on these low-owned guys. When you take a punt on these low-owned guys and they absolutely kill it, it's nothing better. Like, I remember, even though Starling had that, 3 weeks of fame, it feels awesome because no one else is doing it. People are talking now doing it, but when you do a move that is yours and you go it and it's such a low-percent move.
When you pull the trigger and do it.
It's awesome.
I hate that because I try to replicate that feeling too much, and I do moves like Daly Cherry Evans from Jerome Hughes. So
it can absolutely sting you. It can,
really
but
can.
Look, you've got to take risks in this game, or you're not going to get anywhere.
Centre wing, the position is to do it. Who's your top 3 centre wings for SuperCoach to start the year?
If I'm not worrying about my salary cap, that's very boring. But Ruben Garrick, Jacob Carraz, and Herbie Farnsworth. If I'm not worrying about the salary cap, if I am, then I could probably maybe I'd put Houff into there with how much I really like him, or actually, I'd probably put Mars Hughes as the third there.
The third?
But yeah, if there's no salary cap, 100% Farnsworth, Carraz, Garrick.
Are you a casual because you called him Farnsworth?
I always pronounce names wrong, so I'm not. I'm just Mikey.
Yeah, like Timmy used to say Luluwai with Luai.
What was the one name? Finny Fuiaki last year. I absolutely
Finny Feki Fuiaki.
Yeah, I actually I'm not good at the pronunciation, but
we all have our ones that are just venom to us. But thank you for tuning in for today's episode. Really long one for the centre wings. We'll be back with Timmy next week for the fullbacks, and then TLT the following week for round 0. So keep an eye out for the trials this week. Head over to the Patreon if you want to get some extra analysis. We've already got the notes for the centre wings up, so go check that out. And good luck with your SuperCoach. Yeah, that's it from me.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Savs. And yeah, hopefully I'll catch you guys in the round 0 TLT podcast, which I'm going to try and get onto. But apart from that, good luck with your tinkering and don't let it stress you out too much.
SportshedTV charity match this Sunday. Tune in.
Good luck, Savs.